Articulation and accentuation are your basic ingredients of your meal. If you prepare a soup, I have that example a lot of time. Timing is your salt and pepper. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm preparing a new Mozart piece for the Mozart recording project. And today I'm gonna share one of these pieces with you, which is truly one of the most beautiful pieces I've ever played. Mozart wrote in 1782 a suite, so it's a kind of Baroque suite, as a kind of exercise in the style of Handel or Bach. An overture, an Allemande, Courante, and a Sarabande. The Sarabande is just a very small fragment, and the overture is followed by a pretty long fugue. I've made a practicing session for Patreon. If you want to have me dive into this music really deep and to see me struggle and practice and brainstorm with myself and with my patrons, go and check it out. It's in the second tier level. You cannot miss it. And you find like dozens of other practicing sessions as well. I want to highlight with you today here on YouTube the Allemande, because you all have to know this piece. There is no escape. Mozart is demonstrating here an extreme level of talent, and you could say genius, but what is genius? Probably he was something special. He had a special talent, of course. But the master level he displays here in this piece, in 1782, people were rediscovering the Baroque music, rediscovering polyphony. We cannot imagine that, but editions were not a thing at the time. It just didn't exist. And so people relied on manuscripts that were given in the circles of the second generation of Bach students, copies that were spread, but it was not much. And so in Vienna you had this really important figure, Baron von Swieten, who played music with C.P.E. Bach, with Karl Friedrich Emanuel Bach in Berlin, and he brought several manuscripts, among others, Das Wohltemperiertes Klavier, the well-tempered clavier, from which Mozart played. And so there was a kind of hype around Bach and polyphonic music. And so Mozart studied that music, and then he wrote this suite as a kind of exercise, like this. But of course, he was a master composer at the time, and he didn't finish it. The Sarabande is just one line. Can you imagine that? We're going to dive into this Allemande today. I'm going to play it for you as a fragment, and we'll see where this brings us to. This music is so emotionally affecting me, and hopefully you as well, that I don't know if I can speak about it, if I can show you the beautiful moments, the way how you should play it and not to play it. This would be an episode perfectly fit from, like we have, from flat to expressive, because this might not be easy for many of you watching right now how to play this music. We'll just see where it brings us to. Remember this from this video, take this, go and play this piece. Also, I've tried to set up a new microphone setting to eliminate a little bit of reverb of the instrument, but the instrument is just participating with my voice. There's not much you can do. Hope you forgive me. We'll talk about tempo and things like that later. So just a few lines. That's just this first half. I'm gonna play for you the second half as well because things are happening there. I'm gonna switch off my phone because you will see that I will get a phone call right in the middle of one of the most beautiful pieces of music and one of the most beautiful spots of music you can imagine. If you have, I mean, just tell me in the comments. You need to know one piece of Mozart. I mean, come on, it's this one. I'm not joking entirely. I know it's stupid, but this piece deserves so much more traction. People should know it. So, just a few words on the score, because I know many of you are interested in that. So, if you have the score, and you will see it on screen, it has Allemande, which is of course a term used in the Baroque. It's a very serious piece. It's like, I've read descriptions like, it's like two older people talking to each other, very serious business. It's typical German piece. Of maybe not. I mean, in this case, of course, the orientation is more German, of course. And then you have the Italian tempo word andante. It's very interesting. We don't have that with Bach and Handel. And so the Allemande in the Baroque, we know it's a very slow piece. I mean, people would say, yeah, Wim is again there with slow, but here you have kind of proof of that. Of course, there's an interpretation of the late 19th century of Mozart, in this case, for earlier music. Earlier music, in this case, like 30, 40 years earlier. But andante is actually recognized also by Moscheles, so a generation later than Mozart, and a few generations later than Mozart. Moscheles never knew Mozart. Moscheles metronomized a lot of music. He was born end of the 18th century, and he died, yeah, in that time, a pretty old age, I would say, like in the late 60s of the 19th century. So Moscheles was rooted in this early tradition that, like, end of the 18th century, and he metronomized a lot of music also from by Mozart. And so, thanks to him, we have a kind of a look into the 18th century. Without these metronomarks, Karl Czerny is another figure, we would have to guess completely what could have been a practice there. And of course, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's an interpretation made by Moscheles. Always there is a context. So, but for the recording project, I take these metronome marks very seriously and I actually follow them if we have those metronome marks. So I'm now actually playing according to Moscheles, who wrote 8th note 96. Of course, I apply the whole beat principle. If you wouldn't do that, you would have to double this tempo. And I'm not even going to try to play it because it would be ruined, I guess. So that's a little bit of background. We have 16th notes. There's nothing fancy about that. The notation is very much in line of what a Bach Allemande would look like. And if you see the score, you have all these syncopations, like for instance here. So if you have figures like that, where you kind of zoom in on a certain figure, rhythmical pattern, people today much too easy say like it's common time, so you have to play in quarter note pulses. That's what the measure dictates. But we have not many measures, we have not many time signatures if you think about it. So the composer is left with like very little tools at his disposal to really show to the player what he or she wants. And so you have always to look into the score. What does the harmony tells me? If I'm not going per quarter note, if there is like a normal common time sense where you have one strong accent at 1 and one at 3, because then you are thinking in quarter notes. It doesn't apply here. Yeah. You could say like I could play it like that, but in the second bar, there's way too much happening. And so then the shift to an 8-note pulse, you can make that. And in these cases, you could say like it's a kind of adagio notation where you actually slow down the tempo by half. And an andante is coming close in that range. So I'm thinking, and Moscheles apparently as well, in an 8-note pulse, where the 16th notes get like a lot of attention. Probably that's why he metronomized with the metronome ticking in 16th notes. He wrote 8th note, but that's the whole beat principle. So if you play that piece, and again, I'm going to play the second part in a second, don't worry, because there are some passages really, it's just blowing you away. if you look at the beginning and you sit at your keyboard and whatever instrument you play, harpsichord, piano, clavichord, and you play it at first with not really knowing where to look at, then it can sound very, very flat. Let me demonstrate, or try to demonstrate. The reason why I make these videos is not to say like to let you feel or to let you acknowledge how much better I am than that, but it is kind of mysterious for many people, and I know also the people that I have been teaching, like where do you start to make music out of that? People talk about interpretation. It's a kind of interpretation. It's like a term that we have to define very well. Interpretation in the sense of like, what does the score dictates what's not written in the score? That you have to figure out. And how do you do that? Mentioned it before. It's articulation, accentuation, timing. You have other things as well, phrasing and things like that, but that in this style of music, accentuation, articulation are your key elements, and then a little bit of timing. And so if I only add articulation at the beginning and I just play as flat as I try to be like before, then you already get a completely different music. You hear more the details now than before, like just by adding a little bit of articulation. And now comes a little bit of accentuation, because that is something I see with many people, that if they play especially slow music, to give a weight on every note, and that doesn't work, of course. There's a hierarchy, and many people do this unconsciously, just because their technique dictates they follow the rhythm. See, many people play like that, and so don't do that. Even if you play in 16th notes, you have an 8th note pulse, you have still the quarter note pulse overall, so you have a hierarchy of gradation, so to say, of pulses. And so when you do that, this is important. Accent. So suddenly the music becomes understandable to the listener. Why? Because you as a performer, you could say you add audible bar lines. But you could also say you structure the music, which is very abstract, when you don't see the score. You still as a listener have to feel, where's the heavy beat? Where do you take me? Where do you lead me? And that's very important in pieces like that. And then the final thing, I mean, it's not the final thing, but it's important, it's timing. So just timing means let's say articulation and accentuation are your basic ingredients of your meal. If you prepare a soup, I have that example a lot of time. Timing is your salt and pepper. So, and that's of course up to you. And now I thought I had switched my phone, but I didn't. It's in flight mode and still it calls me. Anyways, so like there is a difference between players that want to have a little bit more like this feeling of, it's not rubato. People often say that's rubato, it's postponing something. No, it's just stretching the time. You have this up-down movement, strong, light, and you can actually play with that. Once I have my learning platform, I will make videos on that. in depth so that you have all the tools to really orient. I have to, of course, in these videos, bring everything a little bit together. So timing in this piece is what makes your soup digestible in a way that when I stop playing, you say like, wow, what a piece of music. The music itself does it already. But adding that is helping it to bring the message over to the listener. But do it in a way that is not distracting the listener from the score. And that's something, I'm not going to talk more about this in this video, but it's very important. Interpretation, that's what I said, we have to contextualize that. You have to put that in the context. Like the performer, in my opinion, should be disappearing entirely in the score. And at the end, you should say, wow, Mozart, and not, wow, Wim. You get my point? That's actually very much whole beat like. You disappear in the score. So let's try that. Articulation, accentuation, and timing. You could say that's a phrasing, but it's also timing. Listen here. Do nothing now. And now a little bit. You barely hear what I'm doing, but if you know it, you hear it. Listen. Exaggerate now a little bit. So I wait on the G. And now I do not play the note, the E flat, right on time. That would be like this. I give it a little bit of time. I use the energy that comes from the heavy beat. Also here, syncopation. I can play it right on time. Or and by doing that, you give that, in this case a G, you give that a little bit of energy on its own. Tom, tom, tom. When you are a singer, string player, wind player, you have so much more possibilities for these expressive tools. If you play one of those instruments, your ability to accentuation, to make something more important, is so much bigger than when you play keyboard. Luckily, I'm playing on a clavichord because I can do that a little bit with the baby. You won't hear that, but you will hear the sound. You will feel the sound live up a little bit. Maybe not on YouTube with all the compressions, but on the recordings you will hear that. So now we have several layers of what makes the music actually expressive. Is that interpretation? Timing, yes. Accentuation, articulation is just what you need to do. It's like inherent on your way of to your way of playing, because otherwise it doesn't work. And so whenever people say like playing in a whole beat is not music, but it doesn't work, I have to smile a little bit because it tells something about you as a musician. Of course, what many people mean is like this concept doesn't work because it doesn't make any sense. But acknowledging that you're not able to translate your toolbox to a different tempo universe, that's quite telling. I mean, you need to have a little bit of fantasy and control over your soup that you're cooking, because if you do too much, you kill the music completely. Let me go over the edge here. I mean, that's a caricature maybe, but you would be surprised once you know how much musicians tend to do and to put in and to force upon the music, how that this actually is not really caricature. People, I'm not going to continue with that because I would spoil my memory of the piece, but people sometimes oftentimes overdo, especially when you go to romantic music, which we made videos on that before. And so that is the entire piece. And then you have the character of the piece, of course, which is lamento. It's unbelievable. Mozart was, by the way, how old was he at this time? 26. Let me just play for you the second part. And then you might want to listen to the music first, but maybe also to the small things that I constantly do. Of course, when you play, you forget everything. It should be natural, but still you have to, as a player, be aware of what you're doing and when you're doing. It's by listening to the music, it's by understanding what's going on. It's like understanding the narrative of the piece, so to say. It's experience, of course. But now that you know all of that, enjoy the second part and try to listen to these intricacies. That's a fancy word, hope it's right. I wish you were here, because on YouTube you will not experience this silence. Sometimes with the clavichord, I mean, especially with the clavichord, you can just evoke the silence around the instrument. It's very mysterious. It's of course inside your own head, but it's so beautiful to have that moment. And when you then look at the score and you see that Mozart writes at the end an eighth note as a chord, respect that. He writes a fermate on the end of the last bar line. So he wants you to play the chord in the air, to throw it in the air, and then leave the music there. It's beautiful. I mean, guys, can we appreciate this music? Just like a moment like it's just doing an exercise here, huh? Like, let me try if that style would fit my, and then you come to, I mean, of course, it's a language that we know, it's a color that we know, but like, it's so easy. He makes it seem so easy. So can we appreciate that? Like, it's, let me know in the comments if you know this piece, if you knew this piece, and if you didn't, or if you know it, what are you going to do with it? Because I want to know if you're going to play that, and well, it will change your life. It's exaggerated, of course, but it will change your life for the better, and that's not exaggerated. This is beautiful music. It brings people back to their beings, like here, connected with their soul, conscious, and we need that today in this world that goes crazier with the day. So let me know. And also, there's practicing session on Patreon, as I said at the beginning. Check it out. It's on the second tier level. We have several tier levels, start at €5 per month, or dollars. I don't know. Patreon's in dollar, I guess. And then you get updates and things like updates are the most principal thing there. But then you have $15 per month, which is like, of course, then you are super supportive for the project that we're doing, and you get also these practicing sessions in return, and also the video podcast, and so on and so on and so on. There's a lot there. Check it out, and I would appreciate that if you just did that. That was all I've got for you today. We're gonna look into Mozart more, Bach as well, and other composers as well. Again, let me know in the comments what you would prefer. There is so much, I mean, also the suite, the overture here. There's so much I would like to talk with you, and also the membership site, the learning platform. The moment I have some time, I'm started to prepare that. Preparing a course now for the people who backed the WTC2 on Kickstarter last year. Still have to make that one course on one project and Fugue, and that will be cool as well. And that might be like a pre-echoing the learning platform. Who knows? Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. We will see each other very soon. Again, bye.